I'm calling this meeting to order. Welcome to the Fort Vancouver Regional Library District Board of Trustees meeting. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Is there a second?
Seconded.
Any further discussion? I move this to a vote, please.
Marie Coffey.
Aye.
Aye. Megan Dugan.
Aye.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole.
Aye.
Olga Hodges.
Aye.
Irina Kakarina.
Aye.
Christy Morgan.
Aye.
Mary Williams.
Aye. Motion passes. I have no announcements today, so we'll move right into public comments. You will have 2 minutes to speak. We'll take 1 hour to hear comments. Please no clapping or noise during or between speakers. No inappropriate language. Please be respectful of one another. Direct your comments up here to the board, so you'll step up to the microphone, face us, and not the audience. Please no playing recordings or videos. And as you come up, please remember to say your name into the microphone before you begin.
All right. Up first, Patricia Skinner Patterson. And Patricia's going to be followed by, I think, someone who's online, unless Catherine Gardner is here online.
It's hard to hear you. Yeah,
I'm here online. Okay, great. Thank you, Catherine. All right, Patricia.
Good evening and thank you for your time. My name is Patricia Skinner. My pronouns are she, her. My background is in educational psychology and in human development. I am blessed to be a mom to a queer young adult who was raised on books and experiences here at the Fort Vancouver Regional Libraries. As a child, one of her favorite people was the children's librarian, Ruth. Our child is not a statistic. She's not a study. She is a human. And I am grateful that she had the opportunity to see herself reflected in stories we brought home from our libraries. I witnessed her validation and her empowerment. I saw her become part of an inclusive community with her straight peers, who also at a young age had access to queer, gender, queer, and trans representing library books. If queer books are banned or limited to those 18 years and older, our community loses the most important time of gender identity development, which begins as early as 18 months, and sexual attraction development, which begins at puberty. Reading princess fairy tales did not make our daughter straight. Reading her favorite folktale, Baba Yaga, over and over and over with librarian Ruth did not make her grow up and eat children. Our daughter is not queer because of queer representation in literature. She is healthy and visible. Queer representation is not propaganda. Censorship results in ignorance, which drives division and hate. Please do not censor queer affirming literature. Help our local community here have access to truth, knowledge, and inclusiveness. Thank you.
Next up is Catherine Gardner online.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Gardner, pronoun she, her, and I'm a resident of Vancouver. What do I want from my library? I want a library that has something for everyone, that can consistently entice and excite the minds of those who use it daily as much as those walking in for the very first time. I want a library filled with staff who are selfless and smart, clever and creative, thoughtful and kind. I want library staff to help keep the library welcoming and safe for everyone. I want a library that not only supports its community, but reflects it. I want a library where my family is free to choose and read what we please, not just what others think we should. I want a library filled with the good and the bad, with the truth and with fantasy, a library with as many resources as a person might require. I want a library that honors intellectual freedom, that stands up against censorship, a library that recognizes that strength comes from diversity, not uniformity. I want a library as diverse as the colors in a sunrise, with a range of knowledge as broad as the night sky. I'd say FVRL does a pretty good job of being the library that I and my family and our neighbors deserve. A solid 9.5 out of 10, because there's always room for improvement. But in these dangerous times when reality is apparently an opinion to some and people are taking out their own fears through trying to control others, I mostly want my library to stand up for what is right, to continue honoring its commitment to access, collaboration, and inclusion in a time and place that they are needed most.
Next up, we have Emily Lucenus.
Good evening, board members. My name is Emily and I use she, her pronouns, and thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. I'd like to talk tonight about book reports, which I think is a fairly fitting topic for a library board meeting. Have you ever had the experience of listening to someone give a scathing review where they just eviscerate the author and talk about how much they hated the book? The characters, the plot, the subplots, all of it. Just picks it all apart and ends the report by saying, never read this book. It's terrible. After everyone finishes, that person's report is still sticking out in your brain and you have to ask them and say, wow, you really hated that book, didn't you? And they respond with, I actually didn't read it. I just needed to sound like I read it. Right now, America is listening to people who haven't read the book. Recent surveys suggest that 70% of Americans have never knowingly met a trans person, yet every person in America right now seems to have a really strong opinions about trans people. The medical care they access, the bathrooms they use, the sports they play, pick just about any facet of their lives right now is all up for debate. But the consequence of not reading this book doesn't look like failing a class. It looks like failing a population consisting of children, parents, friends, neighbors, and family. This population deserves better, deserves decisions being made that impact them by people who have actually read the book, who listen to research, science, and best available evidence. I beg you, library board members, do not make the library a place where only people who haven't read the book get to have their voices heard and their agendas made. The library belongs to everyone. Thank you.
Next, we will have Kay, followed by Jess, followed by Lucy. So Kay,
Did you say Kay Ellison? Is that another Kay?
different Kay. Kay did not provide last name. All right, Jess? Jess? All right, Lucy?
Hello, my name is Lucy. Truly believe that library should be a place where all books should be for everyone to read and learn about the past or upcoming events and to explain the present or the patterns of the present as well. Banning books is something a certain group of people have done, and it resulted in the deaths of millions. Yes, and plus libraries are places where people learn and thrive. I have personally used libraries to keep myself afloat and learn many different skills to survive in the world that we know now. So there we go.
Next, I have a Fia, followed by an Amber, then Tiffany. Fia? Ew.
It works.
Hi, my name is Fia Marie. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a trans woman, and this is my library card. The first thing that we did when we moved to Washington State, went to our small little library in the center, and we got our library cards. The most recent book that my youngest and I checked out and read together at night is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. One of the first things that she noted in this version is that in the illustrations, Alice had brown hair. Almost immediately, she was like, look, Alice has brown hair like me. And she was stoked. She quickly says, Alice always has blonde hair, but this time her hair is brown. I asked her how it made her feel. She looked at me and she says, I love it. Representation matters to children. It matters to adolescents. It matters to adults, honestly. If representation didn't matter, then millions of white men and women wouldn't have lost their shit when we got a black Little Mermaid, right?
Please watch your language. Thank you.
Only one, we get a freebie. Every month, one free. Those same narrow-minded bigots are once again trying to remove representation and erase identities and culture, just like so many colonizers before them. By banning books, removing them, making them inaccessible, we are telling children that their identities alone are a reason for censorship. Shame on you. The most important thing that we can do as parents, adults, and as a society is nurture and validate our children, their identities, and encourage them to form their own independent beliefs and build their self-esteem so that they grow up to love themselves as much as we love them. Once again, we urge the board to remain true to its policy on inclusivity for all members of the community and not just the ones who are too fragile to handle a mermaid of color or queer and trans identities. Thank you.
Next I have Amber.
Hi, board. My name is Amber, she, her pronouns. Mine's short. All people, especially children, deserve to see themselves reflected in media. Queer and trans kids exist and have the right to read about themselves and their history, and the history of those that came before them. Books teaching queer history and gender diversity are not pornography. They should not be age restricted, and sanitizing bookshelves does nothing to serve your community. Thank you.
Next I have Tiffany Pine, followed by Brogan, followed by Chris Smith.
Good evening, board. My name is Tiffany. I'm a resident of Clark County. I'm a biological woman, a wife to my husband, a mother of 3 sons and 2 daughters, a grandmother of 3 grandsons and 7 granddaughters. I've come to these meetings and time after time, I hear testimonies of how citizens representing the LGBTQA+, that it was the library where they came as children or young youth, and they came onto their own because their library was a safe place and there was a world of knowledge at their fingertips. Good for them. That's the same thing that I want for my grandchildren. A safe place for them to learn and grow. This library is their library too. Drag Queen Story Hour has no place in any library. Drag Queen history, you can study it for yourselves. It was brought to fruition in 1800 by a disturbed man who was traumatized and then took his freedom and jeopardized it for sexual desire. Drag Queen Story Hours are opportunities to spread radical ideologies. Drag Queen Story Hour undermines traditional notions of sexuality. It blows my mind that every meeting I've been to for the last 2.5 years, biological women in this room are silent about men dressing like them, pretending to be them. Men in drag spreading their transgressive sexual desire to young, innocent children. Whether anyone in this room wants to admit it or not, Drag Queen Story Hour is about men with kinks trying to fulfill them without caring about how many humans get hurt in the process. Put a plan in place to never have Drag Queen Story Hour in the community libraries. Thank you.
Brogan? Brogan Sullivan?
My name is Brogan Sullivan. He, him pronouns. I teach at Clark, and I grew up in libraries. My parents would drop me off at libraries when I was a kid. I would stay there for hours. I learned about my world at libraries. I learned about the world around me. I learned about the people around me. Hillary Clinton said that it takes a village to raise a child. And if I was raised by a village, that village was a library. There are no words strong enough to express how essential it is to provide free access to ideas. There are no evil people. There are no evil books. There are only evil actions. And make no mistake, the attempt to remove books, any books, that celebrate LGBTQ plus stories and experiences is an evil action. It is an aberrance in a democratic society, the kind of policy that inevitably leads to the kind of culture that Carl Sagan foretold in the demon-haunted world in 1995, almost 30 years past. I have a foreboding of an America in my children's or grandchildren's time when the United States is a service and information economy, when nearly all the manufacturing industries have slipped away to other countries, when awesome technological powers are in the hands of a very few, and no one representing the public interest can even grasp the issues, when the people have lost the ability to set their own agendas or knowledgeably question those in authority, when clutching our crystals and nervously consulting our horoscopes, our critical faculties in decline, unable to distinguish between what feels what could and what's true, we slide almost without noticing back into superstition and darkness. I urge you not to let that world become true.
Chris Smith. Chris will be followed by Angela, followed by SB Collins.
Good evening. My name is Chris Smith, and my pronouns are he, him. I live and own my home in Clark County. I'm a tenured professor of English at Clark College and a frequent patron of this library. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank the Fort Vancouver Regional Librarians for their tireless work in developing a robust, diverse, and accessible catalog. Everyone in our community, no matter their political affiliations or personal values, benefits when they can access, to quote from the foundation, diverse forms of media and have universal access to various information sources. Today, the right to learn and the freedom to access knowledge and ideas is under attack. It is under attack by those who wrongly believe they have a right to control what the rest of us read, and by extension, what we think and feel. The proposal to control who has access to books and other media with gender and LGBTQI themes undermines the right of everyone in this community to make a choice for themselves. As a college professor, I cannot understate how vital it is that our students have the freedom and ability to read and learn about a broad range of diverse experiences, places, and perspectives. Our libraries must be a place where every student is welcome, accepted, and valued, and where they can explore topics and ideas regardless of their family or community's values, beliefs, or ideologies. I would urge those who would force the rest of us in this community to live by their limited and fearful point of view to instead leave the decision on what books are available to the trained professionals. Let the librarians do their job. Again, I want to thank the librarians who have worked hard to find books that enrich our children's lives.
Angela.
Hello, I'm Angela Childers. Resident of Vancouver. Also would just like to start by saying, when you call out names, would you please also speak into your microphones? 13% of Americans have hearing loss. It's very hard to hear you when you're not speaking into your microphones. Also, to make these meetings more accessible, you could turn on your captions in the Zoom meeting so people in this room could see the captions and have better access to the meeting. And you could also make sure it's turned on so people that are joining the Zoom meetings can make sure that they have captions access. Sign language interpreters, so just always aware of whether or not people have access. Vancouver resident, daily user of this library, queer person. I love this library. Grew up in a library, was dropped off, came home with stacks of books all the time. Would not have had access to any information about people like me if I had not had access to my library growing up. Would not have had a sense of identity, a sense of belonging, a sense of any idea that there were people in the world like me if I did not have access to my library. Please don't censor queer literature. Please don't take quick drag story outward. Our people need representation in this community too. Thank you to the librarians who are working so hard here to hold the line,
to make sure that we're represented here too. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
SB.
We can't hear on the Zoom. Can you have the speakers please speak up? Thank you.
A really loud voice. Let's see how this goes. Hi, y'all. My name's SB Collins. I use he, they pronouns, and I am a homeowner in Vancouver as well as a regular user of the library. And as I was listening to the comments this evening, I realized one thing, that when I was growing up, I did go to the library a lot, and I got to learn about all sorts of different kinds of people at the library. I grew up very, very religious in an evangelical home, and I learned a lot of wonderful things in my life. And when I was a kid, I went to the library next to people who were very different from me and who had very different beliefs. And I believe that that made me a stronger person and a better person. And I think that as we're talking here, there's no need for any of us to not be able to see ourselves in the library. I think that we can open the library to people who want to have drag story hour, and we can open the library to people who would rather not. That's one of the great things about the library, is that it's here for all of us all the time. And I think that in this nation, as we're so divided and we're fighting over things that are really important and valuable to people, to let them see themselves in the library, but that isn't just the queer community, that's also anyone in the community being able to come and find things. Coming out as a queer person when I was in my teens, I was desperate for material about what God thought about the gay community. I was desperate to see that God still loved me, and I found that information. And while that might be sacrilege or sad to some people that I found God in those books, my heart was broken because I knew the God that I had been raised with was not happy with me. And then I found materials to show that it was okay and that my God still loved me. And I think that that is something that we can't pass up as we're having these conversations. This is a place for all of us. Thank you.
Next up, we're gonna have John Bauer, followed by Gary Wilson, followed by Christine Swatch.
Hi, I'm John Bauer, resident of Clark County and regular user of the library. I'm speaking in support of maintaining access to books related to gender, sexuality, and queer history. We don't ban books with straight romance in them. We don't ban books with straight children in them. We don't ban books with cis children in them. Single out books or materials just because they have people in them that make you uncomfortable is blatant discrimination, and it's wrong. Banning materials will not make queer kids disappear. It will just make them feel even further isolated than they already are. The library is one of the only places in our community where anyone, no matter their income, can come and enjoy its resources. We cannot deny anyone, particularly the most vulnerable among us, access to this important resource. As an employee with Evergreen Public Schools, I've met dozens of queer children in crisis in the past few years. They need these resources. We all do. Additionally, some people question why Drag Queen Story Hour exists. They question why drag queens want to be around children. It's because drag queens are a type of clown. They dress in silly outfits. They like performing to children because children love silly outfits and they're an easy audience. The only reason someone would think feminine clothing is inherently sexual is if they have some weird personal issues to work out. To these people, please work out these strange weirdo thoughts before you start sharing them in public. Thank you.
Gary Wilson.
Thank you, library board members, for your service. Please continue to err on the side of caution when it comes to programming for your most vulnerable patrons, the children. And tonight I wanted to donate a book, How to Host a Viking Funeral by Kyle Scheel. He was a featured speaker at a conference I attended. He's a pretty funny guy. I thought it would be good. The book does have some serious content to it as well. And I just would like to read at the top of page 146. He had handed out these, he was at a college. He goes around to corporations, colleges, does speaking, also K through 12 schools. And he was handing out 3x5 cards, and he wanted people to write down on what they wanted to let go of. They needed to let go of. And he'd collect them anonymously, but this one girl kept her card and came up after and handed it to him saying, "This is the thing I want to let go of," she said. I looked down at the card, which said, "My sexual assault experience." I let out a quiet gasp and said, "Oh, Julie, I'm so sorry." I stood there staring down at the card in my hands, not knowing what to say. When I looked up again, she was crying. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice breaking as she wiped tears on her sleeve. In moments like these, I come face to face with the glaring realization that I'm entirely in over my head and that I'm unqualified to be having these type of conversations, that I do not have the foggiest idea of what the right thing is to say. But then I realized that there are no right things to say, that there are no words I could speak that would magically make this girl's pain go away. "Julie," I said, "look at me for a second. This is not your fault. You did not deserve this, and this does not define you. No matter what the details of the situation were, and they're none of my business, it does not change any of those things." And it goes on, but I want to give that to library, so thank you.
Dean? Dean will be followed by Margot, followed by Randy.
Hi, my name is Christine Block, she, her pronouns. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to speak. I really appreciate it. I also, because of precedence, I want to also say homeowner living in Vancouver, Washington. And also I am cis, hetero, white, married to a man. I mean, I'm like not the category of people that are worried about the representation. I am worried for them. I am a former teacher. I feel like it's very important to have the representation because these people exist whether or not you know that they are there. And it is not invalidating to show who you are to other people for other people to learn. And I also grew up in a very diverse area in Miami, Florida, and I'm very aware of the lived experiences of Black folks, Latino folks from where I grew up. And not everybody is as lucky as that to live somewhere privileged, but to live somewhere that is so diverse. And one way we can find that is by coming here, where there are members of the community here, represented here, because this is free, right? This is a free part of our community. And I grew up with the library. I grew up going all the time. And I also think this place is really amazing. I just want to get that in before my time runs out. This is like the best library that I've ever been to. Like the art programs that you have, programs for children, it is so thoughtful and curated. And I think to some extent, it is not really appropriate for me to tell you how to do this because you guys are already doing the work. You know who the community is. You see the community come in every day. You know how to take care of the community. I appreciate that. And I look forward to you continuing to take care of the community. Thank you.
Margot?
Hello, board. Yeah, nice to see you tonight. Excuse me. I'm Margot Logan. I live in Portland, but I'm over in Vancouver more often and I help with your tax base. Former CPS investigator, worked with kids in group home, teenagers 15 to 18, daycare, public schools, the students. And I've been coming for months and just donating books and just trying to get a different conversation going. However, I see this conversation keeps happening. So in terms of my expertise, in North Carolina, 2016, convicted sex offender, pastor for gay youth there, got the whole bathroom thing going. And for the first drag queen person who came here in the library in 2019, Claire apparently had a YouTube video with Miss Grizzle and the Magic School Bus. And that was a grooming video, whether he knew it or not, that sex offenders take beloved characters and they use them to draw children in. And the music he used was, "I Think We're Alone Now." So And I know it's so, mind control is so easy. And if you study Edward Bernays, you would know back to the 1920s, he wrote a book called Propaganda. And he knew how easy it was just through visuals, through the media, through TV, through movies, people posing as doctors, nurses. They got women to smoke more, so that now women die most from lung cancer. So, you know, I understand the young people being confused and being led in certain ways. And my primary concern is that the children who are being abused, they get help. Thanks.
Randy Schmidt. Randy will be followed by Quill, Onstead, followed by Ruby.
Thank you for letting me speak to you. My name is Randy Schmidt.
Can you hold the microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
For years now, you have heard advocates from both sides of the Drag Queen Story Hour issue advocating either to abolish Drag Queen Story Hour or to make them a regular part of your library offerings. Those who advocate for the Drag Queen Story Hour inclusion use the argument that bylaws and policies of the library include all worldviews with equal relevance without ever making a judgment decision on whether or not what they're advocating true has merit or is true. Last month, one of the advocates of the transgender lobby stated that recognizing that gender is binary is ignoring the multi-spectrum of gender. But is that true? Is there a multi-spectrum of gender? The science is coming out and the science is true. In fact, you've actually had people now not withholding their science and not making it known to you because they don't want the results to be known. We know now that XX and XY stamps governs every cell of your body, every cell. And that doesn't just affect your physical body, that also affects every part of you. And so because XX and XY stamps on you, it clearly shows that gender is binary. It doesn't mean we can't act that it isn't, but we are male or female. And so Drag Queen Story Hours intentionally attempt to blur this truth to young impressionable children per their website. That's their intent. Speaking to the dysfunctional and mental issues experienced by those who claim to belong to this trans population, it is clear that blurring this truth or pushing young people away from a binary lifestyle harms them. So therefore, I would ask you to please choose to set before you that you would not allow Drag Queen Story Hours to continue or to ever occur again in the future to protect the children of this community. Thank you.
Will Onstead.
Hi, my name is Cole Onstead, and my pronouns are they, them. I'm here to speak in support of Drag Queen Story Hour as a genderqueer member of the library community. I love watching women's hockey. The Professional Women's Hockey League is in its second season, and you can watch the games for free on YouTube. Right now, Montreal and Minnesota are battling it out. Go Victoire. Yesterday, I learned that tennis champions, women's sports advocates, and wives, Billie Jean King and Alana Kloss, were vital to the founding of the PWHL. Billie Jean King has a famous quote, "If you can see it, you can be it." Nobody knows how a child is going to grow up and identify. It is vital for them to be told and shown that no matter what, they will be accepted and loved. To say, do, or imply otherwise is soul-crushingly cruel. It puts conditions on love that is supposed to be unconditional. It's important for kids to see and experience diversity. They need to grow and learn about cultures and identities other than what they grow up with. Kids are sponges. They are learning every moment of every day of what is considered acceptable or not, from parents to teachers to fellow kids. Why is it impossible for Taylor to wear sparkly nail polish and play hockey? Who is hurt when Sage wears a dress one day and overalls the next? Maybe the problem isn't Taylor or Sage, but Harper, who thinks it's okay to bully other kids for being different. Drag Queen Story Hour is a vital program that teaches kids about gender identity in an age-appropriate manner. Parents who do not approve of Drag Queen Story Hour do not have to bring their children to any Drag Queen Story Hour programs. Please allow the staff of FVRLibraries to present Drag Queen Story Hour and have the district live up to the ideals espoused in FVRLibraries' equity statement. Thank you for your service to the community.
Next, we'll have Ruby. Ruby will be followed by Charles Forshoe and then Eunice.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Ruby. I'm a Vancouver resident. I'm a trans woman and my pronouns are she, her, they, them. I'd like to start off by saying that I have personally been a victim of transphobic violence, specifically physical abuse as a trans child. The library exists as a repository of information, a safe house preserving the history of our world in pure unadulterated form, a place where anyone can come to learn anything that someone else has thought, felt, lived, or created. My mother, one of many closed-minded people, intentionally restricted my access to information about the queer community because they refused to allow me to be my own person and come to my own conclusions about my gender identity and sexuality. Without access to literature written by and for trans people about trans people like myself as a youth, I wouldn't have the vocabulary necessary to communicate my needs and seek the appropriate care. It is because I was denied access to this literature and care that I had to undergo the full force of my first puberty and the worst of my dysphoria, which led to the suicidality I experienced in my late teens. This could have been avoided if my mother had taken the time to learn about and accept me instead of trying to force me to be someone else. Please do not restrict the access to books about trans people. Thank you for listening.
Charles?
Hello, I'm Charles Forshoe. Am I loud enough? This is going to be kind of a lightweight one here because we've been hearing a lot of heavy stuff, but not long ago, Director Jennifer at, I think, an event that Sherry for volunteers did, asked who in the room had been to every single FVRL library. Only 2 of us raised our hands, and one of them was Molly, and she was told she didn't count because she was an employee. Now, I counted even though I did it because for several years I was Morgan Freeman to Nancy's Miss Daisy and drove her like all over the district, from Goldendale to Woodland and many times. And I'm only mentioning this because there aren't that many people who I think have done that. In fact, you specifically said, have you been to Yale? And I said, yes, twice now, because whenever you go for a long drive in the country, it seems like you drive past the Yale Library, no matter what you do. But I'm mentioning all of this because you can't see all of these libraries without being struck by how unique and amazing this district is. It's almost to me like kind of a miracle. It's just the diversity, socioeconomically, geographically, everything about it it's fantastic. And I don't know how y'all do it. I mean, it's an amazing job. I last month, or was it December, I guess, for the first time in a long time, did one of these public things and realized that there were a lot of people who came back every month. Okay, I'm done, I guess, but I'm going to be back every month to talk about how great the library is.
Eunice Ingermanson?
Good evening, board. My name is Eunice Ingermanson, she, her, your patron in battleground. First of all, I want to let you know that PFLAG Vancouver has just celebrated its inaugural meeting last week. In these very scary times, when transgender identity and people are being erased, and the medical care and other best practices necessary for their thriving are being denied by executive orders right and left in DC and state legislations. PFLAG Vancouver opened its doors to help folks who are LGBTQ adults or who have LGBTQ loved ones get together for peer support, education, and advocacy. Now, 20% of our youth, both in our county and in Washington state, identify as LGBTQ+. The American Psychiatric Association depathologized homosexuality in 1973. And then in 2013, with a publication of DSM-5, gender variance also was depathologized. What we still need to do as a society is apply the golden rule in how we treat the gender expansive community. An important part of that is to have their existence and their stories reflected in the materials and programming in the public libraries, which exist to serve all of our community. This mission of yours is more important than ever. Thank you.
Next up, we'll have James Franklin, followed by Gayla Miller, followed by Kyung Willis.
Howdy, everybody. James Franklin, he, they. I've lived in and around Southwest Washington since 2000, and I spent many countless hours in the building that one is replacing. If for no other reason than the fact that it was somewhere that offered heat and light on cold winter nights across the street from my high school. Like I said, I've been here since 2000. I've had the same library card the whole time. My mom worked for the library at one point. So you can imagine how it struck me as odd. About 12 years ago, I was on the East Mill Plain and I saw a bumper sticker that says, "Keep Vancouver normal." I thought to myself, what's that even supposed to mean? What even is normal? An identity defined in opposition to something that's weird or strange? That's not something that we can afford to here in Southwest Washington, here in Vancouver. We cannot define ourselves by what we are not. And by extension, defining what we have allowed our kids to access, even if we choose not to have kids like myself, we can still act as pillars of our community by allowing the spread of information that might not otherwise be accessible. Information like the fact that the first ever book burning was at the world's first sex clinic. Transgender care was pioneered at a school in Germany until 1933, when every single book they had was burned for being un-German. We can't afford to ban books that are un-American or age restrict books that are un-American or contrary to our ideologies and our religion, just because we're uncomfortable with conversations that might come about from it. Mommy, why is that man wearing a dress? Well, that's not a man, you see. Okay, can we get McDonald's on the way home? It's that simple. Kids aren't complicated. Thank you.
Gayla Miller.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Gayla Miller. I go by pronouns she, her, and I appreciate the work that you are all doing. So thank you for listening to us this evening. I'm not as prepared as everybody else. With recent events happening with the new administration, I've decided I need to step up a little bit more and make sure that I'm helping to create the type of community that I think we all deserve. So my friend Kian invited me to this meeting tonight, and I thought I would use this time to thank you all. I was really encouraged when I walked in the front door and I saw books honoring Black History Month with diversity, equity, inclusion policies directing federal agencies to erase any reference to them on their websites, and with all the activity going on right now, I think that I want to honor all of you and encourage you to continue to share all the diverse voices and
your attention, please.
That's what I
The library will close in 15 minutes. Please take your materials to the
Young Willis.
stations. Teacher accounts desk. on
Kyung will be followed by Kay Ellison, followed by Jude.
Hello, my name is Young Willis, she, her pronouns also.
I also want to say thank you to the library. When I was in elementary school, I spent quite a bit of time in my elementary school library. I was in the school spelling bee, and so I studied for the spelling bees with the librarian, and I also learned how to do Dewey Decimal System, and so I love the library. When we first moved to Vancouver, I wanted to know exactly where is the closest library, how close is it to my house. Thankfully, we're right by Cascade Community Library, and I really appreciate this library. I mean, the library has been so great in providing such a diverse representation of books, and I really do appreciate that. Especially for me, being Asian American, I grew up in this country, and sometimes it's not easy to see a lot of books by Asian people, in libraries or in other places, or not. Sorry, you see them in libraries, don't see them in other places. So it was really great to be able to find that, and to continue to find that now. And I also think it's important. And so for myself, I have a fourth grader, and I think it's very important for she and I to learn about everyone's experiences, wherever it might be. And so we always go to the library, we find a book about maybe Black person's experience, right? LGBTQ experience, whatever it might be, just so she can learn and so I can learn as well. I think that's the best way to try to understand ourselves and other people in our community. Thank you.
Kay Ellison?
Hi, Kay Ellison, she, her, and I love this library, and I'm so thankful it exists. I grew up where there wasn't a library, except if my dad could drive me to it. And he had one car, 2 jobs, and so I was lucky to get to be going there. And my school had no library because I was a baby boomer. I still am. And anyway, I just love this library. I like how for 40 years now that I've lived in Vancouver, I can get books of a wide variety. I love that I can check out a paperback or a print, or I can read online. And I love that because I can have a wide variety. I would like that for everyone, that everyone can get a book that they would like to have. I don't think that we need to control what families do. That's them. They can decide. Kids can't get here on their own anyway. I know. Recently, I've been really reading books about Jewish people. And so I reread The Diary of Anne Frank. And a lot of problems happened where somebody was controlling everything about that society. And one thing was book bannings, like someone just mentioned. Let's not. People can control their own families about what they could have. I would like us to be free. But I also just want to say, I am so grateful for this library. I don't think I could live without it. Thank you.
Next up is Jude, followed by Shannon, followed by Amanda.
Hi, my name is Jude. My pronouns are he, him, and I am excited to talk to you guys today. To start off, I want you to think back to your very first crush. The first crush that I can remember, I was in 2nd grade, but I'm guessing some of you probably had crushes a lot earlier, and probably not, some of you probably not until later. Now hold on to that thought. Last month when we were here, someone spoke about the idyllic state of the library when they were growing up, when the only characters they saw represented were straight and cisgender, and how we are depriving their children of having a similar experience by providing books that include queer characters. And even today, we've heard folks come and tell you that books featuring queer families or characters should be restricted to adults only. I want the board to hear the other side of that. That first crush that I had, I was 8, which was quite confusing for a kid who really didn't have any context or vocabulary for having a queer crush. The TV shows, books, church material, everything I was surrounded by told me that every prince had a princess and every bride had his groom. I want you to imagine having that very first crush and not having it fit into any world that you've seen or heard about. What that might make you think about who you are as a person. Not as a grown adult with a brain that can separate cultural stigma from your own values, but with the brain of an elementary schooler. And guess what? Other kids notice differences too, and were quick to bully people who did not conform. At the end of the day, parents get to make choices about what books they read to their children and what books they let their children check out, as it should be. But I stand strongly against the idea that kids are better off without representation. Lack of representation is not morally neutral. The other side would have you believe that this is inherently an adult topic, but I don't know a single person that had their 18th birthday and suddenly had their first crush and knew their gender identity. That's not how people work. Lack of representation is not morally neutral because it leaves queer kids feeling invisible, like they don't belong, like they're defined by scant stereotypes they might be aware of, which can lead to all kinds of bad outcomes, including ranging from things like hiding who they are and not participating as much, all the way up to suicide. Thank you.
Shannon?
Shannon, I use she, her pronouns. I'm cisgender, but here joining the proposition for protecting Drag Queen Story Hour and rejecting censorship that only serves to pit children against friends. I know that we're all here because a small group that is very vocal one is being driven by fear rather than facts, campaigning for censorship in the public spaces under the guise of protecting children. And statistics are compelling. In 2024 alone, 39% of all LGBTQ youth, and specifically 46% of transgender kids considered suicide. And states that passed anti-transgender laws aimed at minors saw suicide attempts by transgender and queer kids raised by like 72%. What message are you sending when a trusted adult refuses to explain the world to their kids, choosing instead to demand that the world be reshaped for their personal standards? If a parent doesn't want their children to read a book, they're free to parent their own children. Although I might caution them that the internet is quite accessible these days. They are not free to decide what experiences other children have access to. This is not parental rights, it's ideological control. The truth is queer people exist with or without books about them. The only thing these bans do is make it harder for queer youth to find affirmation, safety, and hope that they can make it to adulthood. So I think that it makes your stance on which children deserve protection abundantly clear if we claim that it's about children's safety, right? If you have questions about genderqueer people that leave you with concerns, I implore you to ask them. If you think there's some sinister agenda at play, it's because you don't know any queer people. I urge you to stay after the meeting and see if you want to speak to some of these people whose rights and representation you're rallying against. Choose to sit in your own discomfort and learn something instead of demanding that the world shrink itself to fit your fear. I hope that you guys recognize the absurdity of this effort years and years later, right? I don't hold your commitment to equitable access. Years.
Last on my list, Amanda.
So my name is Amanda. I'm a resident here in Clark County. I also belong to the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I'm here to bring another perspective that isn't often talked about. I'm advocating for our LGBTQI communities to be represented. Not representing them is also a cultural genocide. Being both German and Native American, I'm very familiar with what that looks like. In our Native communities, we have people in many different tribal nations. We call them Two-Spirit, or have many different names depending on tribal nations. Some tribal nations were used to recognize and still do up to 7 different genders. And so the idea of having only 2 genders is actually very, very new to America. It's something that got brought in with colonization. And if we read more books and have more representation and allowed more voices, we all would know that and learn how to accept that. Many of our multi-gender people or Two-Spirit people were also known as our medicine people. So by getting rid of these books and education and by marginalizing these people, it's also an attack on my direct culture and cultures all around America that have been suppressed for so many years. I think one of the things that cultivates, and I think we all can agree, no matter what we believe in, is these last few years in America, one thing that's grown is a lack of kindness in how we treat each other and a cultivation of hate. And I believe that truly comes from a lack of education and a lack of understanding each other. And I think if we could drop our biases and learn to love our neighbors, get to know who our neighbors actually are, get to know who people are that are not like us, who have different beliefs, I think we can learn to accept each other, and that's done through learning. The library has always been a safe place for that for everyone, and I think if people don't want their children to learn about certain things, then they simply don't have to go. If people don't want to go to drug time story, they don't have to bring their kids. Thank you.
Brian Hoff, who is online, has expressed to speak, so
Were they signed up by the collection?
we used the chat.
Hi, everybody.
So was that the end of the people who have signed up?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you all for your comments. I'm closing public comment today. I do have a few questions for Jennifer. Are there any books being banned at the request from the public right now?
Well, first of all, the terminology is kind of inaccurate. What the public does is at times they challenge a material, and we have a policy that outlines that ability. So at this current moment, we don't have any challenges.
Thank you. What about from the board? Is the board requesting any books be removed or banned or challenged?
No, the board has never asked for any books to be challenged, or they have not challenged any books and have not banned any books from the collection.
Is there any work going on right now to segregate or remove books based on material, subject material?
No, I'm unaware of why this topic came up. This is not a topic we're talking about internally or with the board. So unclear. What I would tell you, FVRL is dedicated to offering a diverse collection that reflects many viewpoints, supporting our communities and making their own reading and viewing choices. Our collection includes materials and resources selected and maintained by our team of librarians according to the collection policy that you can find on our website. This is established by our Board of Trustees. The process involves careful consideration of various factors such as relevance, quality, and community needs. Our collection is guided by the Bill of Rights and our Board of Trustees' commitment to ensuring the public has equal access to information, a fundamental right in a free society. Trustees support library staff's efforts to resist censorship, protect library users' privacy, and maintain a balanced and inclusive collection that meets the information needs of all patrons.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second? Second. Is there any further discussion? Move this to a vote, please.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Aye.
Olga Hodges,
Aye.
Irina Kakarina,
Aye.
Steve Morgan,
Aye.
Mary Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We'll give people a second. I would say if people are worried about things we talk about at our meetings, we post our agenda online before our meetings, and you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting to listen to everything that we talk about.
If we could have staff close the doors in the back so the meeting can continue. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the reports section of the meeting. First will be the December 2024 financial statements with Katrina.
Good evening, trustees. I am excited to tell you I have nothing exciting to tell you about your financials. Message this month is much in line with what we've been talking about the last few months. So no surprises is a good message. We are ending the year 2024, so December financials ending the year with about 800,000 less cash than we began the year with. This was expected. In fact, we have a little bit more cash than we originally expected to end the year with. This is also a $1.8 million reduction over where we were in November. So I just want to talk again about the timing of our revenues. We receive revenues in April and October primarily. So then we will continue to spend our reserves or revenues down in between those months. On the cash report, the other thing that I will mention is the reserves that we spent on the lower section there is all related to the Woodland project, which is beautifully displayed behind me here as well. If we move on to page 15 of the report, the statement of revenues. Overall, all of our revenues are meeting or exceeding expectations in the individual categories. And I can tell you that for the year, we are just under $300,000 above where we budgeted for. I can go into details if you would like. However, I'm just going to move on to the expenditures unless there are questions. Okay. Moving on to page 16, the expenditures. Again, no surprises. Overall, we are under budget for the year. We expected to be under budget in personnel for the vacancies we've been talking about the last few months. We have fully spent our library books and materials budget. And then we have a few other areas that are slightly below budget, some for some known reasons. For example, our strategic and facilities plan that's happening in 2025 versus 2024. And as we talked about a little bit last month, there is a timing delay with state compliance, sometimes with our capital expenditures. That is all I have planned to tell you this evening, unless you have questions. Thank you.
Are there any online?
I can comment.
Just a comment.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the FVRL Foundation update.
Hey everyone, I am Jenny Wilkerson, the new foundation executive director, so a new face after 23 years. Happy to be in my position. I started about 8 days ago. So if you have any questions, I may not be able to answer them fully well, but happy to be here. We have a few gifts to report that I can't take credit for, but they're in the packet, a recent foundation gift and some revenue from our thrift books, as well as a Benevity grant that came through this week. So we have some revenue coming in, which is really exciting. But if you'd like, I could share a little bit about myself to let you know. So I'm a 20-year nonprofit fundraiser. I have experience in healthcare, higher ed, and the environment. But most important to this role, I've worked in academic libraries and fundraising for libraries. So the opportunity to be a part of this organization and team to support the mission of the library is really something I'm excited about and experienced in, and happy to be working with all of our great teams to bolster resources. I live here in Clark County. I grew up here, so I'm very close to the community. I have been a library user since I was a child here. My kids are big fans of Libby and all their Kindles, so I'm personally very invested in the resources that we can provide for library work. Oh, is your first week then? What's that expression? Drinking from the fire hose? But it's been great. I've been starting to meet with our board at the foundation board, but I'm also meeting with all of our friends groups. I'm hoping to visit all of our branches. So Hopefully I'll be able to raise my hand that I'll have been to all the branch libraries in the coming months. That's a big goal of mine, and meeting with all of our friends groups as well, and all of you.
And she goes by Jennifer. No, she goes by Jenny and I go by Jennifer,
Yeah.
so it'll work out fine.
Yeah, it was very fortuitous. I used to be a Jennifer, and then I rebranded to Jenny in advance of this. It'd be too confusing to have two Jennifers. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'm happy to get to know you all as time goes on. Welcome. We are so glad to have you. Thanks. Thank you. Next is the FVRL organizational report with Alicia and Jennifer.
Hello, nice to see you all. Just want to highlight some things that are happening around the district.
You're muted, Alicia.
Sorry. Hi, how are you all? It's great to see you. We'll start over. Just want to highlight some of the things that are happening around the district. In Goldendale, they are doing something interesting with one of their display cases. They're displaying all of the resources that we have available with the library card. And then they're letting patrons, if they have a card, they get to put a silver star. And if they're a new card, if they just get their card, they get the gold. So then this way they're going to track that through the end of the year to be able to see how many cards and how many folks were in their spaces in 2025. So I thought that was really nice. The Click Attach bookmobile, they work with a lot of the schools. There was one teacher in particular that was really excited. They did some book boxes, both for Martin Luther King Jr. and civil rights, also Native American winter holidays. The teacher was incredibly thankful that they took the time to be able to do that to support the curriculum that she's teaching in the classroom. Some other highlights, Ridgefield, they do a really cool Build It program, as do a lot of our branches. But this month they had 115 patrons that came. Of course, it was slime, so who doesn't love to make slime? Patrons are really loving it, so I thought that was great. Also, one really cool thing, there's a picture in the report, but the Ridgefield friends, they donated a big bird and an Oscar, which are really, really lifelike looking, and people really, really love them. They weren't sure if people would remember who Big Bird is, but a kiddo ran in and just shouted to their mom, "It's Big Bird," so just thought that was really great. Lots of teen activities going on in the district. Stevenson just expanded their teen programming. They're doing a teen hangout every Tuesday evening. They're doing art projects, movie nights, homework help. They also just transitioned to family story time from Thursday to Saturday. And this is to just give more availability for working families to be able to participate in story time on the weekends. A couple of other things. Washougal started an outreach story time at the Yahweh daycare. It's a small group, but they're really enjoying it. The daycare staff are super excited that we can help support that. More teen happenings in White Salmon. In January, they did a teen late night. They hosted a trivia contest with Kahoot. It's a platform that features mini quizzes on pop culture, and the topics were selected by their teen council. And then couple quick things, Yakult. Yakult does a Wednesday and Friday Kids Create program, and you all know how small Yakult is. 150 patrons. So lots of folks visiting Yakult, which is great to see. Another couple of patrons that live in Amboy, they're really excited about Sunday self-service hours. They go get their coffee and they drive to the library, they get their cold. So it's really great that we're able to offer those services in that area. And then one last mention for Yale. As you know, Yale is right next to the elementary school, but they are able to come over once a month. And they do an art program, art activity, and gives the kids an opportunity to come and check out books and spend some time in the library. So.
I then want to highlight on page 37 of the packet that the Woodland Community Library, hence why we have this board back here, was just awarded the American Council of Engineering Companies of Oregon Small Projects Award. And so our work with PBS Engineering and Environmental and Hacker Architects resulted in this award, and we received a plaque. Dave Josephson and Jennifer Howen were able to attend that ceremony. So I'll pass this down, and this will be headed to our Woodland Library to find a place for it. So we have continued to see so many positive comments and use of that library. And it really is a marvel to see. You know, and you plan for it for so long, you're building it. And indeed, build it and they will come. And so it's really great to see the building getting so well used and to see now a second award already for this particular building. In addition, we are in the midst of having workshops with all of our staff and our Friends of the Libraries regarding the levy lid lift that you voted on last month. So those workshops really are to help provide information for our staff and our friends groups on what a levy lid lift is, what we're going to be asking for, and what is legal and not legal for us as public employees and in public facilities. So those are going well. I believe we have 3 more staff sessions and 10 more Friends of the Library meetings over the next month. And then those will wrap up. We are also developing our levy lid lift service plans that you will see in March and vote on in April. And those are the details to what will happen if the levy passes or fails. So that work is underway, and you'll see some drafts of those plans next month at your board meeting. Also, out on the FVRL website under bids, we are looking request for proposal for our 5-year strategic planning process. And I'm sorry, the process won't be 5 years, I hope. A 5-year strategic plan and a 10-year facilities master plan. So we're looking for consultants to help us through those planning processes, which, as you know, will have deep public engagement and feedback in order to develop those plans for the community as we look ahead. Continuing to celebrate 75 years and trying to plan for the next 75. In addition, next week, we will release solicitation in the media calling for pro and con committees for our levy lid lift. And that will be out there asking for all people interested to respond within the next month. Any questions?
Thank you. Next, we'll have the Vancouver Mall Branch report with Brandon.
Hello. Hello, I'm Brandon Cruz. I'm the branch manager of the Vancouver Mall Library. Been there for 5 years now. If you haven't been to the library in the mall, we are small, but we are mighty. We are, I think, the 3rd smallest full-time branch. But we definitely punch above our weight in a lot of things. We've been in the mall for over 40 years now. We are one of the first libraries in a mall in the area / country. Other districts and other places reach out to me occasionally to talk about starting new ones. I know Timberland and King County have both started ones in the last 5 years. And so I've talked to them about what it's like and how to set it up and stuff like that. And so it's definitely, though not our biggest, it's, you know, we've been around in this various places in the mall a lot longer than some of our other branches. So first and foremost, I have to give a shout out to my staff. I have an amazing staff who are constantly working with the public and helping. 2024 was a year of change for a lot of us. We had 3/5 of the staff move to various other positions and move on. And so it's been a lot of flux and change, but they have been great, providing amazing customer service and really interacting with patrons. We get a lot of people who have not been to libraries in a long time. One of the benefits of being in the mall is we get people who they're not coming specifically for the library, but every day, at least 2 or 3 times a day, we hear, "Oh, the library, I haven't been to the library," as like they're walking by, and you'll see the people like walk by and like stop and then come in and get library cards and get books or check to see if their library card that they haven't used in 10 years is still up and running and not. And so we get them for a new card and stuff. And so it's a really, really great, and the staff are really good at making people feel welcome, encouraged, and feel like they're part of the community. And then quite honestly, then we spread them out and then they go off to whatever branch they will end up going to later. So this year we were able to do a bunch of fun outreach. Because of our smaller size, it's not something we get to do a ton, but we were able to go to Orchards Elementary twice, do some family nights there, give out hundreds of books to kids that the foundation allows to, which is just the best of. As a librarian, there's a few things I love more than giving books out to people. And to see how excited the kids are when they come up and they look at the books and they do that, like look to their parents and you're like, "Yeah, no, you can have one." And they're like, their face lights up and they get super excited. And it's just such a great opportunity for us. We were also have started partnering with some of the local daycares around us, which has been really nice. Hitting a Target demo that we don't really get to see that much in the mall. And meeting some of the people in our area outside of the branch, which has been extremely great for us, and the staff really love it because what's better than going to a daycare where you can do some story times and games and have them scream not in a library for once. One of the best things about being in the mall is that we get to partner with the mall for a lot of things. The mall does a lot of events that bring in people that wouldn't necessarily come to the library. So one of the mall's big event is CoopCon. It's their comic book convention, and they've been doing it for 3 years now. We don't have exact numbers, but last year, or 2023, they had over 2,000 people come. I think it was probably more this year because the place was really crowded. We do a cosplay repair booth. So the people come and all of a sudden their costume gets all ripped up. They can come up and fix it. We also have the button maker, which is hands down everyone's favorite thing at all times. And then this year we did some costume making. So the kids who didn't have costumes and seeing all these cool people with these cool costumes could come up and can make little masks and stuff like that. It was a really great way to interact with something that we wouldn't normally have any way to be a part of, except for the fact of our location. We also do, when partnering with the mall, we do our branch is really small, so we don't have any extra room to do story time. So the mall has the Little Free Library, which is kind of a little bit farther down the mall, and we've worked out a partnership with them, and so we get to do it there. This year they've redone it and made it look gorgeous, and it's really a great place for us to do story times because again, most of the people who we get in our story times are people who are just walking by with their kid and go, "Oh, story time, yeah, we'll sit down," and so they sit down, and so it's a really great opportunity to interact with people who are not necessarily seeking out the library, but then realizing some of the services that we provide for them. We also got to be part of the Business After Hours, which is an event that the mall does with various business associations in the Clark County area. They had to go around to different places and get stamps or do something, and then they all got put in their raffles and stuff. And so we made them make buttons because there was nothing more than I love the idea of a bunch of business people having to come and make buttons. And there were people who came multiple times to get multiple buttons because they're like, "Well, I need something for my kid." Yeah, that's okay, dude. I know you're not making it for your kid, it's for you, but fine, we'll let you make more buttons. But this is a great opportunity for us to interact with the business community, which is, again, they might not be coming into us and thinking about us, but we were able to show them how that we can be useful for them and their work. Some of our programs that we did this year, we did an owl making, not owl making program, an owl pellet program. And we partnered with the Vancouver Audubon Society, where came in and they got to dissect owl pellets, which are gross. But the kids loved it. They were so very excited to be digging through those things. Yeah, they loved it. We also brought down someone from the Washington Talking Book and Library, Washington Talking Book and Braille Library, which is up in Seattle, which is a statewide organization who provide services for anyone in the state who needs help with vision or hearing. Those devices there on the side are the devices that they will send to people. It's an amazing service that not enough people know about. And so they came down, they talked in our branch, they went up to Battleground and talked to some people, and then to some of the assisted living facilities near us. So they're trying to take them and bring them to some of the places there. And it's a great service. Anybody in the state can do it. And it was really a great opportunity to partner with a organization that it's another one of those things like us where they're just desperate for people to find out about them. And if you don't know about it, you don't know. Another, I think our biggest one, everyone loves this one. It's a sew a creature. We teach the kids some little different ways to sew, and then they get a bunch of felt and they cut out little monsters and stuff them up and make them all cute and adorable. And so one of our bigger, like, just in-house programs of the year. Like, everyone was just really into it, and there was a lot of people who like made one and then came back a little bit later to make another one. And so, like, it was, very, very popular. The kids love it. My daughter went to this, and after that, she was like, "Dad, we have to do this at home." I was like, "Yeah, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now." And she still makes little monsters that I find all over the house. Some of our bigger programs that we do are some of the library programs. We bring in presenters. The other great thing about being at the mall is the mall allows us to do presenters and performers in the center court, which is literally in the middle of the mall, which allows us to have huge attendance. I think we have over 200 people for the Reptile Man, getting to get up close and personal with those guys. You can see the Snapping Turtle, who's totally friendly, I'm sure. Reptile Man is always a big one. Everyone loves him. And you can see all the people kind of wrapped around. What you don't see are all the people who are standing up top around, looking down. It's a really, gets us out there and lets people see us. We also brought in the Antaco drumming, which was great. When the staff was talking about this, I was like, I don't know, guys, it seems very loud, and I don't know if the mall's gonna go for this. And so I brought a list of things to the mall, and I was like, yeah, these guys, they're drummers, they're super loud. She's like, oh yeah, that'll be great. So I feel really bad for the store that's right there, but they're again, the same thing. We had over 100 people who were stopping and watching, tons more people who were walking by, seeing us, seeing what's going on. And really a great way for us to get out there. And then Angel Ocasio, who does like magic and sleight of hand and songs and all kinds of stuff, and has a really big following apparently, because that was our biggest one of the year, which I was not expecting. And it was super well. Apparently, like, there were people like shoving people around up top. So we don't normally have staff standing up top, but we had to go have staff like corral people up top. Guess good problem to have. But he's super fun, great with the kids. And then we did some of the district programs, which are just such a blessing for a branch like our size, where they come in these nice little boxes and the staff kind of know what to do when we do it. And they were great programs and super fun. Again, my daughter did the marble maze, and I have those marble mazes all over my house now. And I really feel now what all the parents are always feeling with all these fun crafts that we keep sending home with them. We also did along with a lot of other branches in the district, the Library Con May the 4th. So Free Comic Book Day was on the same day as May the 4th. So we combined those two things together. We had cosplayers from Star Wars cosplay group come in, do button making, which was nonstop all day long, and then a bunch of other crafts and things, and really brought in a lot of people. You know, the first people who got there got some free comic books, and then we quickly ran out. But this was definitely one of our bigger things. The library was literally packed all day. Like we had to start switching people around because we did not have room in the library for the number of people that were there. It was great. And then so this is just some of our statistics for the year. As I said, we're one of the smaller branches, but we did sign up the 5th most people for library cards this year. Yeah. Our computer usage, which is a big deal for us. We have a lot of computer user people come in, and it was up 13% from last year. Again, 5th in the district. Circulation 6th in the district, which for our size is great. Was looking at the Wi-Fi connection this year, and it was markedly higher than last year, which I don't know what that means, but I'm going to take it as a positive that people are coming back to the library a lot. So it's been, we're hitting people who are not necessarily looking for us, and it's really, really fun for us as a staff. I love it, just because you get to deal with a lot of people who are, first-time library users, or I haven't used the library in 20 years. Like, great, here you go. Here's all of our awesome stuff. So, thank you. Do you have any questions?
We obviously don't meet at the mall, because there's not enough room to meet at the mall. So we met here in December and we're always back in February. So while Molly could tell you all the great things at Vancouver again, that's why Brandon is talking tonight about the mall.
Presentation, thank you. Okay, if you all will bear with me, we're gonna hop back up to item 6.1. I forgot to have this vote on the December financial statements. So let's do that now. Is there a motion to receive and file the December 2024 financial statements as presented?
So moved.
Seconded. Any discussion?
That was a second by Mary Ann.
Thank you. And move this to a vote, please.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Aye.
Olga Hodges,
Aye.
Irina Kakarina,
Aye.
Christy
Aye.
Morgan, Mary Williams.
Christy Morgan is an aye.
Mary Williams
is an aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Next up is the business portion. We will go with the Facilities and Finance Committee. Revolving cash staff report. Katrina.
Thank you. I am back with some more money talk. So as many of you probably know, the branches in various capacities have cash funds, whether it's an actual cash till or the kiosks, the various types of kiosks that they have to support patrons in purchasing, whether it's a non-resident fee that you'll hear about later, earbuds, copies, things of that nature. So along with that, we as an organization have to ask you as the Board of Trustees to approve what that looks like. And this is not something new to the organization. The last time this was approved, I think, was in January of 2023. However, what is new is this structure provides some flexibility in amount. This request was historically for a set amount. which doesn't allow for flexibility for the finance team and the executive director to make changes at the branches as changes are needed, whether a kiosk is added, maybe a till is removed, but a kiosk is added. That change in need could change the amount of money that we need in this fund as a whole, as an organization. So we are asking, instead of for a set dollar amount, to have a threshold that we always be within. Any questions on that?
If there's no questions, then we are asking you to adopt the revolving cash fund by resolution number 2025-04.
This is Mary Ann. I didn't have a question. I just thought it was a very reasonable approach because all of your libraries are located in such different locations, and having that ability to address the needs at that location, I think is really smart.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any other questions or for Jennifer? Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2025-4 revolving cash funds as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? I move this to a vote, please.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Aye.
Olga Hodges, Irina Kakarina,
Aye.
Christy Morgan,
Aye.
Mary Williams.
Aye.
Motion to approve resolution 2025-4 revolving cash funds passes. Next is the policy committee, non-resident fee staff report with Jennifer.
Yes, so as you know, annually we set our non-resident fee amount, and we have a policy that's the next on the agenda to look at our library privileges policy, which we're recommending a change to that policy surrounding the non-resident borrower fees. The primary purchasers of non-resident cards are those living in unincorporated areas outside of the city of Woodland that don't pay for library services within their taxes. And as we looked at the methodology for how we come up with the non-resident fee, we determined that it really wasn't equitable in the same manner as what our residents pay for library services. So the current methodology is to take all of our expected property tax income and divide it by the number of people in our district to come up then with an amount, and that amount is $53.23. However, if we change the methodology to what's recommended is to take the average homeowner, average home value, mean home value within our district, which is $399,632.25, and then apply our levy rate to that amount, you would come up with $107.42. So almost double what the current methodology provides. And it is really important that people that are having access to using our library from outside our district, not paying taxes, are paying an equitable share of the cost. That it is not a free service. That's why we collect property taxes. And while we want them to buy non-resident cards so they do have access to libraries, we also think it's really important for our community to know that we're charging the same rate whether you live in the district or not. Non-resident fees can be confusing because if you have a library in your district, such as the city of Camas has their own municipal library, it's not part of FVRL, but we do have a reciprocal borrowing agreement which means that anyone that lives in our district can go and get a card from City of Camas Library and use it inside the branch and take materials back to that branch. Or any of the residents of the City of Camas can use any of our facilities, but again, they have to check items out in our facilities, return them to our facilities. But that's free, so that's not what we're talking about. We're only talking about non-resident fees being applied to those people that live in unincorporated areas adjacent to our service area. And primarily, that is of our 354 active non-resident cards, 332 of those reside in Cowlitz County. So using the Woodland Community Library. Any questions?
Question on the Cowlitz County one. Where do they have their own library system, but just doesn't cover that area? Or what's the situation in Cowlitz County?
Cowlitz County has many unincorporated areas that are not paying any taxes towards library services. They also have a few taxing districts, such as the Yell Valley Library District, that does collect its own property taxes for library services. Also, the city of Woodland that is in Cowlitz County is part of the Fort Vancouver Regional Library District. So we're talking about areas within Cowlitz that do not have any library service in their area and do not pay for it.
Thank you.
Oh. Will there be a grace period for the people that are now paying more? And will they be notified in any way so they won't be shell-shocked to the Woodland staff?
Well, the recommendation is that if you adopt the policy and we change the policy, it would be effective on March 1st. Anybody that's already paid for their year, whenever their year is up, is when the new fee would take effect. They also can pay in quarterly installments. As far as notification, we certainly can put something primarily in our Woodland location to notify patrons of the new cost, and we have talking points prepared for our staff to explain this as well. So if there aren't any other questions, we do recommend that you change the methodology of the fee increase, and it would go to $107 for 2025. And this allows for individual non-resident cards. Anybody living within the household would be eligible for a card versus the prior methodology is one card per household. So this actually expands the number of cards that are available, just like anybody that pays taxes within our county.
That seems reasonable. Have you had any response from the people in Cowlitz County about the fee, or any reactions?
Well, they probably aren't aware until today, so not yet. Certainly, even prior to this new methodology, people come in and want to get a card and are surprised they don't live within our boundaries. And so that's kind of their first surprise, and that's already something the staff, particularly at our Woodland Library, are very familiar with talking about. Yeah, I'm sure there will be some surprise, but I think that it's also a pretty hopefully easy to understand that the people within our district are paying a certain amount, and we're trying to equalize that for people outside of the district who want to use the services.
Have you suggested to that population about joining the library district?
Well, Marianne, I'm 14 months in, as you know, to this position, but my understanding is prior to the pandemic that there was a push for district to form and to join us up in the Cowlitz County area, and it was defeated.
So it was an annexation into the district then?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there any steps aid to the low income?
So, thank you for that question. I'm gonna turn you to the policy starting on page 56 with the proposed changes and really the proposed changes deal with the change in the methodology, but in further discussions in committee last week, I believe Megan Dugan's gonna offer an amendment that addresses your question. So
Yeah, our policy committee met last week and we talked about the change to the non-resident fee and I had an idea at the last, really at the last minute when the packet had already been prepared that residents in Washington that are exempt from property tax because of income or disability or age and a combination of those things, they can apply for a property tax exemption. And so I asked Jennifer and the staff to look into whether that could be added to the policy, that senior citizens and the disabled and low-income families could be exempt from this fee if they had an exemption from property tax.
So if they have a SNAP or federal health insurance, they're not exempt from taxes, but they have a low income.
yeah, no, just as people in our district have to pay property taxes, so what I think Megan is proposing is if people in our district have applied, senior citizens and people with disabilities who have been granted property tax exemptions may have the non-resident fee waived with supporting documentation. That's the wording we've added to the policy that was handed out separately tonight because that was additional language after the packet went out. As far as other low-income issues or people on SNAP or other issues, they're not exempt from paying property taxes. So no, there wouldn't be an exemption in this case. I will say that anyone can use the library at any time by coming into our building, whether they have a card or not. So for folks that might not be able to afford that, people can certainly come in and we also have read, return, and repeat books that we give out within the community, really for underprivileged populations, making sure they have access to books in many places too. So there's lots of different ways that we reach the community. And our friends of the library have lots of book sales for very cheap prices. And so even at Woodland, they have a beautiful shelving unit there that's built in where they sell books. So there's lots of different ways in which we can interact and help people get books into their hands.
I think it's really fair that, we had to tell them we had to be equitable and we couldn't just give them free service when we charge the other communities. I think that's important to share. So I appreciate that is part of the message.
So, to be clear, did you want to say anything else? Okay. We are not voting on the library privileges policy. Those in the packet. We're voting on the one that's on the screen and your handout that we got here in person. And I don't usually read to you guys, but I'm gonna read this one just so Olga and Marianne, did they get this? And I'm just gonna read it.
We see it on our screen.
The library accounts are available to non-resident borrowers for a fee paid annually. FVRL may charge non-residents a single household fee determined annually by the Board of Trustees. Non-resident fees will reflect the same rate an average household pays in property taxes to FVRL for the Washington Department of Revenue. Non-resident fees may be paid quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. Where is, I wanted to read out the next part too. So then the addition would be senior citizens and people with disabilities who have been granted property tax exemption may have the non-resident fee waived with supporting documentation. So that's what we're voting on, the additional language from what was in your packet. Is there a motion to adopt the library privileges as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion?
I don't have any further discussion, but I just would like to thank Jennifer and the staff for being so gracious to add that language at the last minute.
Right, and move this to a vote, please.
Marie Coffey,
Aye.
Megan Dugan,
Aye.
Mary Ann Duncan Cole,
Aye.
Olga Hodges,
Aye.
Irina Kakarina,
Aye.
Christy Morgan,
Aye.
Mary Williams.
Motion to approve library privileges policy passes. Next, we'll talk about the fiscal management policy.
So the fiscal management policy has many proposed changes in it that we can talk about briefly, but it is a first reading, so it is here for you to ask questions, and it will come back next month for adoption. But essentially, as part of our annual audit with the state auditor's office, and policies are always looked at, there were some things that were felt could strengthen our policy and make sure that we are representing also what happens. So for example, there's some suggestions in cash receipting that are added to what was already there to clarify segregation of duties, for example. So all of these changes really come from that and the fact that there's a whole section now on electronic funds transfer because we did not have that represented in the policy, and we do electronic funds transfer. That's a growing area for us in providing payments. So this really outlines how we do that. Then grant management was also not included previously, and it needs to be added because it's obviously a part of our budget and receiving grants, etc. The revolving cash funds has been added to this policy as well, and you just talked about that, so no surprise there. And then staff-related expenses, making sure that, again, the practices that we've had that are actually in writing. So for example, staff appreciation, volunteer appreciation, those kinds of things that we actually have the ability to fund those kinds of things. And that has to be done by policy. And then more on segregation of duties. And I think that's it. So I would encourage you, you can ask questions tonight. Katrina's still up here in case I need help answering those. Or you can read it further and be ready next month to vote on it. And you can also, as you know, ask us questions at any time.
Looking at the distribution system controls, and you've deleted some and you've added some. I was curious why, or did you build in the monthly audit by the executive director will be conducted, and that's been eliminated? Is that in verbiage someplace else that I missed? Or
If you could call out what page you're on.
I am on page 70.
Thank you. This was a draft, so none of this section existed initially. It was put in there as a draft and then some edits made within the draft. And so that's what you're seeing. And we outlined it based on our actual processes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I just have a couple grammar and punctuation corrections that I can give them to you. Outside the-
Not seeing any other questions. Next we are at board comments. So I want to thank you all for hosting us here again. We really appreciate it.
Also want to welcome Jenny from the foundation. Hi, Jenny. Yeah, I am the board member this year who is the liaison to the foundation board. And I've had one meeting with the board, getting to know everybody. I'm gonna get to know you too, Jenny. And I'm really excited you're here. I think we're gonna do very cool things. I also want to thank everybody who came for comments. I love seeing a full room.
I also noticed how many people left, and I would just encourage you to tell your friends. Friends don't let friends leave library board meetings early. If you want a full transparent process, it's all here. Of course, we're broadcasting online too, but I would encourage you to encourage them to stay. You know, the things that keep our society free and equitable happen in very unsexy meetings like this. And it's worth watching. It's worth seeing. Like, the funds are all out there for you to see. We have some exciting things coming up this year. So I would encourage you to come. I'd love to see your faces again. But tell your friends, activism goes all the way to the finish line. Any other comments?
I will say, for those of you who know Ryan Ellis at Cascade Park, it is his 50th birthday today. So happy birthday, Ryan, wherever you are.
The next regular meeting will be Monday, March 17th at 6 p.m. at Three Creeks Community Library and also hybrid on Zoom. Is there a motion to adjourn the February 18th, 2025 meeting?
So moved.
There's a second. Second. Any objections? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.